Second Prince Camilla has a plan to wipe out every remaining prince within the succession contest. All she needs to do is find the right time to pull the trigger, and the key to her victory is not her guardian spirit beast, nor is it her personal ability, or even any strategic or political machinations. Rather, the key to Camilla's victory is this group of societal outcasts known as the Karkin Have-Nots, a legion who, after generations of cruel, meaningless existence within the Empire, have developed a sinister communal ability, with each and every one of them ready to give their lives to see Second Prince Camilla take the throne. Now, why are all of these people dedicating their lives to Camilla? Camilla of all people. Camilla is introduced as a stunning beauty set against a background of flowers that only exist as contrast, because not even the most exquisite creations of nature can compare to Camilla's beauty. Something like that. That's not my personal opinion of Camilla. That is Camilla's opinion of Camilla, as she is, without question, one of the least likable princes in the entire succession contest. Or at least that's how I thought until I looked into the inspiration behind her ability, which is called the Cat Who Lived a Million Times Cat's Name. So we've gone over this ability many times on this channel, but each and every time I, man on the internet, have done you a disservice, because I've technically told you what it does, but I've never mentioned where Togashi took the names from. The ability itself conjures a fun Nen cat that resurrects Camilla after she has been murdered, and using the life force of the person who murdered her, the cat then revives Camilla. And it's inspired by a Japanese fairy tale, also called The Cat Who Lived a Million Times by Yoko Sano. And this is quite a sad story about a cat who, as the title says, lives a million times, and a cat who has been cried over a million times when it passes away. However, the cat himself has never shed a tear for anyone across those lifetimes. The cat, much like Second Prince Camilla, only cares for himself, and you can copy and paste this cat's personality directly onto Camilla, as she is extremely vain and believes that by virtue of her existence, she is a superior being. Camilla would never cry over anyone. However, she would expect the entire world to cry over her. And this story goes through a series of lifetimes that the cat has had with various owners until the cat is born into the wild with no owner, and what he does, right, absolute boss maneuver, is he starts his own cat harem. All the girl cats wanted to marry him. Some brought him big fishes, some brought him the best mice to eat, some brought him precious gifts, and some were licking his hair. The cat just said, "I died a million times. Who can be my match?" He still liked himself the most. And again, Camilla is a direct copy of this attitude. She has an expectation of being showered with gifts and licks and licks. I guess so, whatever the human equivalent of licks is. Sexual favors. But most importantly, Camilla does not deem anyone worthy of her. In fact, here is a phenomenal Camilla quote. "Cammy wants everyone in the whole world to do what Cammy wants. First, Cammy wants all other princes to die. Ideally, to volunteer to die. They have to think, since Camilla is going to be king, I should word I can't say on YouTube myself." And notice how Camilla refers to herself as Cammy. This is a pet nickname that she has for herself. No one else uses it. As you can see, when she's impersonating someone else, she has that hypothetical person address her as Camilla. Basically, she is the only one allowed to give herself a pet name because she is the only one worthy of herself. Camilla's sheer degree of arrogance is also why she even orders around her mother, Second Queen Dwazil, despite Dwazil in theory having more authority than Camilla. No other prince would dare to command their mother, not even First Prince Benjamin. So it is such a wild breach of the Karkin hierarchy. But the end of this cat story tells us a fair bit about the direction in which Camilla is traveling for the succession contest. During its wild lifetime, the cat meets an elegant white catess who doesn't care that he's lived and died a million times. In the words of Shania Twain, that don't impress me much. And eventually, our arrogant cat falls in love with the white cat, and they go on to have kittens. And for the first time in his million lives, the cat loves someone more than himself. And one day, when the white cat tragically dies, our original cat cries and grieves for the first time. And when it finally came time for our million-life cat to pass on again, he finally leaves this world and never reincarnates again. The story is a Buddhist allegory of death and rebirth. It explores the meaningless of a life lived without connection. And what happens is that our cat finally finds the meaning of life, and he can move on from this meaningless cycle. And it's tragic because this reincarnation ability is what made both the cat and now Camilla ever so arrogant. They believe that this is a superpower that makes them superior to all other life, but in reality, reality, it is a curse, because they are doomed to live an eternity devoid of meaning. Whereas everyone who dies around them was at least able to find that meaning. And now, if Camilla follows the trajectory of her cat-based inspiration, then at some stage during the contest, she will discover someone she cares about, or it'll be revealed that she's always had someone that she cares about more than herself. And that will be rather tragic news, because that will mean that Camilla can finally die without being revived by her ability. We're now reaching the end of 2025, and I, man who has been making videos about Japanese fictional pirates on the internet for 10 years, has still never been to Japan, but in order to make up for that, I bring Japan to me. As today, I received my Tokyo Treat snack box, the sponsor of this video, a fun and inclusive assortment of Japanese culture to provide fun for your tongue and to fill your currentless Japanless stomach, shipped worldwide from Japan straight to your door. And I really cannot praise these boxes enough. They're just so substantive. And they contain this seemingly bottomless pit of uniquely tasty snacks that I would never otherwise experience, such as the rare Kit Kat flavors that Tokyo Treat includes in every box. And on this occasion for Christmas, we have double berry. So we've got strawberry and raspberry together, really combining the sweet power of red. Wow. That was even better than I thought it would be. And I'm also going to try the Jingle Bell Butter Cookie because I really like his top hat and mustache. Goodbye, top hat and mustache. Sophistication. But also included a Silent Night salted butter truffles, Christmas Island rice crackers, the fa la la French salad, potato chips, and so much more cool stuff. It is genuinely impressive how many fun and unique snacks Tokyo Treat manages to fit into this box, as well as a cultural booklet with snack descriptions, allergen information, and fun insights into Japanese culture. So this box is both delicious and educational. So you can and should check out Tokyo Treat by using my link in the descriptions if you've been craving real Japanese snacks or looking for a perfect gift, a perfect Christmas gift maybe, then you can use my code on screen to get $5 off your first box and order your box now to get it in time for an extra delicious Christmas. So definitely check it out. So much good stuff in this bad boy. Now it's back to you, me. But we should also go into the second part of this ability's name, which is Cat's name, and that is taken directly from a, you guessed it, Keikizaku 46 song called Neko no Namai, which is a song that ponders the beginnings and endings of relationships with lyrics such as, if happiness has an end, then why did it begin? And also stuff like, if there is an end, then when is the beginning? And it's a very interesting song when it's coupled with the fairy tale, because it focuses on that one cycle where we do find meaning, or that hope that we will find it, as opposed to the meaningless death and rebirth cycle. But Camilla is nowhere near the meaningful part of her journey, at least not that we have seen, and her arrogance is why she asked her father, King Nasabi, to rule that only biological deaths are to be accepted as a condition for dropping out of the succession contest. That's because Camilla knows that she is effectively immortal, and she would become the default winner under those rules. However, King Nasabi responds that the sole survivor is the official heir to the throne. How you interpret that is part of the contest, which is a line that gives us hope that this contest doesn't necessarily have to end with all but one of the princes dying, as depending on how we interpret the rules, multiple princes could survive. And Camilla's arrogance is on full display as she decided to march straight into the quarters of brother First Prince Benjamin and attempt to goad him into killing her, and thus having Cat's name manifest to take Benjamin's life to revive Camilla. Ha ha ha! Flawless planning. Except not really, because this may be the single dumbest decision that anyone has made in the succession contest thus far, and that is, it's a pretty high bar. Because what happened, right, is Benjamin, he just sat there calmly and did nothing. Because that is the counter to Camilla's ability to do nothing. It's implied by Balsamilko Mike that Benjamin's faction had already discovered what Camilla's personal Nen ability was, and so they knew exactly how to counter it, which was again to just do nothing. Now, if Camilla had done this against any other prince, her plan probably would have worked, but her downfall here is that she had the sheer audacity to go straight for First Prince Benjamin. And what makes it worse is that Camilla has no appreciation for her own guardian spirit beast, and I believe that also comes from her cat-based inspiration. Camilla believes so much in her own default perfection that she doesn't see a need for outside assistance, and so she is actively working against her own best interests by ignoring her guardian spirit beast. However, thankfully for Camilla, neither her abilities nor her guardian spirit beast represent the key threat of her faction, as the true terror of Second Prince Camilla isn't known to us as readers until chapter 389, with the introduction of the have-nots of the Karkin Empire, who are described as follows. Many ancient kingdoms had a custom of sacrificial burial. Ancient Karkin had a peculiar practice called afterlife companions. Afterlife companions were used to supervise the princes who were unable to become king in the land of the dead to prevent them from turning into vengeful ghosts that cursed the king or the country. Though it was supposed to be an honor, they were compulsively selected from the have-nots, the lowest of the immutable caste system. The custom of afterlife companions fell into disuse, but the caste remained, and they were forbidden from holding public office or joining the military and holding rank. Right, so there's a lot there, but this might be a good time to remind ourselves that the succession contest has been taking place ever since the ancient days of the Karkin Empire. In fact, the Karkin Empire only exists due to the succession contest ability. So these have-nots, they're more or less leftovers of the original contest system. And when the narrator describes the idea as dead princes turning into vengeful ghosts, this is more than likely a public explanation for post-mortem Nen, and the idea that the contest involves killing a bunch of incredibly strong-willed princes, which could result in a highly destructive post-mortem Nen ability being left to curse the empire. And so these afterlife companions were seen as a solution to that problem. That or all of this was just an excuse to sacrifice more people and use that as a condition to make the Nen of the empire that much stronger. That's very possible as well. In fact, both are possible. But at some stage, the have-nots were deemed unnecessary, potentially because as more time passed, the more powerful the empire became after an untold number of generations of princes added their sacrifice to the communal aura pool, and the have-nots lost whatever value they contributed originally. Whatever the case may be, the have-nots lingered in this awkward state of existence until Second Prince Camilla had a wonderful idea. Second Prince Camilla gave all the have-nots the opportunity to join her personal army, constructed a special ward on her private property, and gave them the same status and rights as the armed forces. With their overwhelming support of Second Prince Camilla, they spontaneously called for the reinstatement of afterlife companions. Combined with Nen abilities, they transformed into powerful curse assassins. So these have-nots were a solution to a pretty desperate problem that Camilla had, which was that despite being the second prince, she had no following. Benjamin, the firstborn, had used his first mover advantage to take command of the Karkin military. Meanwhile, other lower-ranking siblings like Zhang-Lei, Cyranik, and Lucerus were installed into mafia families as benefactors, and those mafias function more or less as personal armies. So all of these fairly high-ranking princes, they've all got their own armies with the exception of Camilla, who somehow found herself left out. But to her absolute credit, she came up with a brilliant idea to fix this. Camilla took the lowest of the low and she gave them housing, security, and a chance to live a life that fate had forbidden. Under the law of the empire, the have-nots weren't even considered human prior to Camilla's intervention, but most importantly, what Camilla gave them was purpose. And out of sheer gratitude, the have-nots with their new status called for the re-establishment of afterlife companions, which I will remind you is a practice that involves sacrificing themselves. However, in this case, the have-nots, they had a little tweak to the afterlife companion system. In the words of Sarahel, we'll use our lives for Second Prince Camilla, not dead princes. And so the have-nots have now naturally developed the only known communal Nen ability in Hunter x Hunter called Dust in the Wind Hellfruit. And just to get our definition straight here, there are Nen abilities in Hunter x Hunter that more than one person can be part of, such as Hulkenberg's Guardian Spirit Beast ability, which uses his followers as aura generators to power his arrow attack. However, this is very different. Dust in the Wind Hellfruit is a personal ability that each and every have-not in the Karkin Empire can inherit and use for their own unique purposes. However, the English translation of this ability differs quite radically from the original Japanese name, the kanji portion of which is Sujitsuma Awase ni Amareta Bokura, which translates as, "We who were born out of convenience," and it's taken from a song of the same name by Amazarashi, which is a very nihilistic song about how nothing in life is special, nothing at all. There's no deeper meaning to life and it all operates according to a very brutal sense of logic, and the song perfectly describes the life of the have-nots. They weren't born with any meaning, and for most of their existence, they died without any meaning. Meanwhile, the second part of the ability name is Yomotsui Hegui, and it refers to the Japanese mythology of Izanami, the creator of death, and her inability to leave the underworld due to having partaken in its food. So if you put these two names together, you have being born into meaningless, you're trapped in your own personal hell. However, the one thing that you can do is that you have the ability to create death, and that is exactly what this Hatsu does. It is a Nen Nen curse, whereby a Kakin have-not designates a target and must then carry a dagger along with an object connected to the target, which is usually a photo of them, but it can be anything that has some personal meaning. And from here, every day the have-not in question must think of their target and curse them, pouring all of their malice into this act. And they need to do this day after day for a process of years. So think of it as storing aura for future use. People only have a certain quantity of aura that they can access at any given time, and that aura recharges daily when you sleep and such. So you pour what little aura you have into this ability day after day until years down the line you all of a sudden have enough aura to activate the curse, which is done by burning the object, drinking the ashes, and then committing a word I can't say on YouTube with the dagger, at which point the curse activates, first depriving the target of all aura before exposing them to the actual curse, which kills the target. Meaning that this ability, to the best of our knowledge, is impossible to defend against because it removes the target's power to use Nen and essentially places them in a state of enforced Zetsu. And from there it's implied that it is possible for a Nen exorcist to quickly remove the curse. However, doing so would almost certainly cost the exorcist's life in the process. And so what the have-nots have done is designated one of their members to cursing each of Camilla's 13 siblings, and due to the age range of those siblings, some of our have-nots have been cursing their targets day after day for years at this point, which is a very interesting drawback of the ability, as weirdly enough, all of the older princes are significantly more vulnerable to this curse than the younger princes, because the younger princes simply have not existed long enough. And it has been stated by Sarahel that Fugetsu, Mariam, and Woble's curses haven't had enough time yet. So this might be the one area of the succession contest where younger princes have an advantage over older ones. But there is another pretty huge restriction surrounding these curses as well, which is the proximity of activation plays a huge role in the overall effect. Futataki, a wise old have-not granny, stated that sending a curse from this room would take 3 full months to complete. However, meanwhile, if a curse was sent from Camilla's personal room, much closer to the rest of the princes, then the curse would take effect in 10 days to 2 weeks, depending on which prince was targeted. And Futataki also adds if they tried to send a curse to a prince currently located below them on tier 2, then that would take a full 6 months. So it's not as simple as just charging and then implementing. These curse users need to get as close to their respective princes as possible, and that's currently a big problem. It's been made significantly more difficult with Benjamin's implementation of special martial law, which freezes the movements of anyone on tiers 1 and 2 without Benjamin's permission. And ideally, a have-not would be close enough to touch their target before igniting the curse. But it's not all about proximity so much as it is about determination. As Futataki states, the only thing we have-nots have to surpass the royals, to have a chance at crossing swords with high-ranking guardian spirit beasts, is our determination. Without the courage and sufficient preparation to perish close enough to touch the prince while looking into his eyes, how could our curse ever be successful? And that statement, it's quite scary. Futataki and the other have-nots may not realize it, but in the world of Nen, determination may as well be its own power source. Nen responds directly to drive and emotion, and the have-nots of the Kakin Empire have arguably the greatest levels of drive and emotion of any faction. It's literally all they have. And they also have a surprising degree of utility, as there is at least one have-not named Umanma, whose life was dedicated to becoming a Nen exorcist, with her purpose being to give her life should Camilla herself be affected by an enemy curse. And the only thing that can really stop them are any Nen exorcists aboard with the Hunter Association. And this has led to a somewhat worrying plan being developed, as Sarahel, the woman who I mentioned before, is the have-not who was assigned to curse 14th Prince Woble, and she's planning to use herself as bait to lure out any Nen exorcist by activating her curse. And Sarahel has been handed the exact opportunity she needs to carry this out. Kurapika, as we know, is hosting Nen classes for any faction who wants to send students to learn, and this is an effort to create a Nen stalemate and stall the contest. And initially, Camilla was one of the factions who refused to send any students. And in retrospect, it makes a lot of sense as to why, because each and every one of them are already Nen users with fully formed abilities. There's no benefit to it. However, in chapter 404, we do learn that Camilla has now accepted Kurapika's invitation and will be sending Sarahel alone to the next class, which in terms of the Hunter x Hunter timeline has already happened, but we just haven't seen it yet. So we'll be going back in time to see how this plays out and whether or not Sarahel was successful. I personally think she's going to have quite a hard time pulling this one off. Firstly, because Kurapika is automatically automatically suspicious that Camilla is only sending one guard instead of the allotted two, meaning that she's definitely got another goal in mind. But also, old mate Barbie Minor isn't aware of the specifics, but he knows that the have-nots are able to use a unique Nen curse. So he might end up being our savior here, remembering that Barbie Minor, despite being a guard of First Prince Benjamin, has great sympathy for 8th Queen Oito, and I don't believe that he will let something happen to Prince Wobble if he could prevent it. So there's going to be a lot of tension in this Nen class, with Sarahel trying to get as close to Prince Wobble as possible. But also remember that Sarahel, she doesn't necessarily need to be touching Wobble, not at all really. The curse can be activated from anywhere, and all that activation distance does tells us how long we've got on the clock before Wobble does inevitably die. Futaki also warns Sarahel that proximity means enemy fangs will reach you. Overt malice must be avoided, with Sarahel replying, of course, quell hate with love, I'm good at it. So Sarahel is well trained in being able to hide her intent, which may end up being suspicious in and of itself. If she enters the Nen classroom and she's too pleasant, then Karapik is going to go, I don't buy this. However, Sarahel's raw determination is quite concerning. I am a have-not. I have nothing to lose even if I fail. But to bring things back to love, the have-nots have discovered the same kind of love that the cat who lived a million lives did. Until meeting Second Prince Camilla, they were a people who lived a cruel and meaningless existence. But now that they've collectively found someone worth living for, they've also found someone worth dying for. And each remaining prince is eventually going to need to deal with the have-not that is cursing them, because at the moment, whether it be instant, in a week, in a month, or half a year, every prince with the exception of Camilla is currently guaranteed death.